King Lear. Oh, everybody. So good. King Lear is, of course, among Shakespeare's best-known tragedies, probably the only real rival for Hamlet in terms of the greatest play in the Shakespearean canon. So in this video, we are just going to talk about the opening scene, which for my money is the best scene in, at least the best opening scene in all of Shakespeare. There is so much going on here. Wild. Okay, so we are going to focus here on the love game in the first scene of the play. Here is my general hypothesis. The love game at first seems absurd. Totally absurd. It seems like the invention of a sick man or a sick mind. But when we start to dig into the love game, its dynamics, it starts to look like a genius strategical move. Lear may have developed a very clever solution to a very tricky political problem. But wait, when we look even closer, it appears absurd again, maybe even more absurd than it did at first. So, absurd and reckless, strategically masterful, absurd and reckless again. All right, let's just think about what happens in this scene. Lear shows up, he has this weird plan, he's an old king, and he's going to retire. Okay, this is a little weird. Monarchs don't normally retire. Even now, monarchs don't normally retire. And Lear's got 3 daughters, and his plan is to divide the country in 3, so that it will be jointly ruled by his 3 daughters and their husbands. All of this is politically unusual, but maybe a thing that might happen. But then, Lear tells us how he's going to divide up the country. Tell me, my daughters, which of you shall we say doth love us most, that we our largest bounty may extend, where merit doth most challenge it. Wait, what? So Lear is going to make this monumental political decision based on the outcome of this twisted father-daughter love game show. It's like the worst possible season of The Bachelor. But yes, this is the plan. And Goneril, the oldest daughter, she gets to go first. Sir, I do love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, or liberty, beyond what can be valued, rich or rare. No less than life. So Goneril says, I love you more than anything, more than space, liberty, life. And as a reward, she gets part of the country. Lear's second daughter, Regan, gets to go next. Sir, I am made of the self-same metal that my sister is, and prize me at her worth. In my true heart I find she names my very deed of love, only she came short, that I profess myself an enemy to all other joys which the most precious square of sense possesses. So Regan says she loves her father so much that she hates all other joys. Seems like a red flag, but whatever. Then we get Cordelia, and she says nothing. She has nothing to say. How? Nothing can come of nothing. Speak again. Good my lord, you have begot me, bred me, loved me. I return those duties back as are right fit. Obey you, love you, and most honor you. Why have my sisters husbands, if they say they love you all? Haply, when I shall wed, that lord whose hand must take my plight shall carry half my love with him, half my care and duty. Sure, I shall never marry like my sisters to love my father all. But goes thy heart with this? So Cordelia says she loves Lear exactly as much as she ought to. No more, no less. And she adds, how is it that my sisters have husbands, if they say that all their love is due to you? This is what Shakespeare scholars call throwing shade. Regan hates all other joys that are not her father. Sorry, Cornwall. So Lear wigs out, changes his mind, divides the country in 2, and splits it between his oldest 2 daughters. And he disinherits Cordelia. Disinherited, banished. He sets the tragedy in motion. His country will descend into civil war, and his family will be destroyed. But remember, I said this was a bad end to what was actually a pretty good plan. So let's go back to the beginning and think about this again. So what is Lear trying to accomplish here? Lear actually has a really big political problem. He's a hereditary monarch who has 3 daughters and no son. And as a consequence, there is no clear heir to the throne. Now, of course, we might say if this regime was not so sexist, all of this could have been avoided, and that is true. But according to the conventions of the time, there is just no clear path out of this for Lear. Complicating matters, his 2 oldest daughters are both married to powerful dukes, both of whom probably imagine that they might be next in line for the throne. So suppose Lear just dies. Any day now, he could die. Let's say he just dies. It's almost certain the country would descend into civil war, and he's trying to avoid that. And there are indications, if we read closely, that he has a plan kind of worked out here. Let's think about this love game. Lear chooses the order in which his daughters will participate. And it's a remarkably easy game to win. All Cordelia has to do to win is say she loves her father more than her sisters do. Cordelia is Lear's favorite daughter. She is clearly given the opportunity to win the game. And in fact, while Lear gives Goneril and Regan equal portions of the country, there are indications that the part that's reserved for Cordelia is more opulent, is maybe larger or more desirable. And beyond that, after Lear loses his temper, he says to Kent, "Peace, Kent. Come not between the dragon and his wrath. I loved her most, and thought to set my rest on her kind nursery." What Lear is saying is that Cordelia is his favorite, and his plan was to live with her, to live out the rest of his life with Cordelia and her future husband. So we begin to see the outlines of Lear's plan. He's going to divide up the country in three, give Cordelia the largest or most desirable part of the country, and he's going to live with her. This would make Cordelia the first among equals. She has the king at her side. It lends her and her husband a kind of authority that her other sisters don't have. And let's think more about this love game. Think about what Lear is getting his daughters to do. They're not being asked to solve a riddle. They're being asked to declare publicly their love and fealty for their father. This is a public ceremony. There are other nobles present, right? So before Lear divides up the country, he has his daughters declare their love and obedience to him. This is another way he's trying to prevent a civil war from breaking out. The thinking is that after his daughters have declared in a public ceremony that they love their father even more than their husbands, that they cannot oppose him or cannot attempt to usurp the throne without being seen as traitors. So the fact that this is a love contest, as opposed to some other kind of contest to decide who gets what part of the country, actually makes a good deal of sense. So this is the plan, and it's actually kind of smart. But remember, then it's going to get absurd again, because everything goes wrong when Cordelia says nothing. Everything would go according to plan if Cordelia just played the game, but she won't. On the one hand, this is admirable, because it points to Cordelia's virtue. She won't lie. She won't do this dance like her sisters. On the other hand, couldn't you have maybe just swallowed your pride on this one, Cordelia, and played along? And on the other hand, Cordelia's refusal to play along is a real problem for Lear, given the terms he's set out. Remember, this whole thing is supposed to be about these potential heirs declaring their allegiance to Lear. And insofar as Cordelia won't play along, it makes it very difficult for him to give her the part of the country he wants to. Just tell me you love me. I do. I love you. On the other hand, maybe Lear could have worked this out with Cordelia ahead of time. The fact that Lear loses his mind over Cordelia's response suggests that the game wasn't totally for show. It wasn't totally an instrument. What his daughters said actually mattered to him. And it seems Lear just takes for granted that Cordelia loves him. And he expects her declarations of love to be automatic. My daughter loves me in the same way that fire is hot and ice is cold. Rain falls from the sky and daughters love their fathers. Lear has tremendous confidence in the authority he has over his daughters and the claim he has over her heart. But he finds out her love is not as automatic or necessary a thing as he thought it was. And this is the beginning of a mental breakdown for him. One of the things that Shakespeare seems interested in this play, and that I think interests us, is that human beings are not always predictable, and their impulses, their desires, their reasons are not as reliable or as consistent as we would like them to be. Maybe things we take to be natural, like the love of daughters for fathers, or the love of sisters for sisters, a human aversion towards cruelty. Maybe some of those things aren't as natural as we would like to think they are. We'll talk more soon. See you later.